I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. Hey friends, today's episode is a little bit different. It's not an interview. It's just me showing up with, something personal that I wanted to share because for a lot of people, Mother's Day is complicated. For some, it's this joyful celebration. And for others, it's just a reminder of loss or longing or love that looks different than it once did. So today's episode is one that is a tribute to the women who shaped me and to the man who stepped up when everything changed. It's also a quiet thank you to all of you that come back to the Life Shift every week, which is really a show that is built on the moments that alter everything. This show exists because I believe that stories truly do connect us, because I know what it's like to have life split into this before and after, this line in the sand moment. And for me, some of the biggest quote unquote after moments started with loss, losing my mom, later my grandmother. But in these losses, something else emerged too: connection, resilience, the people that showed up when they didn't have to. And so I think that's where this show comes from. And that's what all of my guests have been so generous in sharing, whether their moments are external from loss or grief or diagnosis or something like that, or an internal moment that really lit a fire and created this before and after within themselves. So that's why I record these conversations week after week. I lost my mom when I was 8, and it's often very weird to say this out loud, but I don't really have a lot of memories of her that are crystal clear. She becomes more of a figment of a mother figure in my life because it has been so long since she passed. But what I do remember is how I felt around her. I felt very safe. I felt protected. I don't remember having concerns or worries or things that made me panic. I wasn't a very well-behaved child when she was alive. I found myself in kindergarten getting behavioral sheets that other students didn't have to get. And so I vividly remember only one time did I get smiley faces on all areas there. So all that to say, I didn't feel like I was ever in trouble. One specific memory I have of my mom, which was a repeated memory, is we used to watch Murder, She Wrote together, and she would drink her tea, which had milk and sugar, and it was so tasty. I didn't drink tea, but what would happen is she would fall asleep on the couch. She wouldn't have finished her tea. And then the next morning, that tea was still on the coffee table, and I would get up and I would drink the tea. That was just like whatever was left. And most of the time, it just tasted like pure sugar and delight. And it's probably why I always have a tea with me when I'm recording the Life Shift podcast, because it is probably this deep-seated memory of drinking tea and feeling really connected to her in those ways. And so that's one moment that I really remember with kind of fondness and kind of feeling, I don't know, connected to her, maybe when I'm having the 1,000 things of tea that I pretty much have every single day. Those are the feelings that stay with me longer than the memories. And even though she's not here, she's definitely still a part of me in my softness, in my connection to other people, in the way that I ask questions, in the safe feelings that maybe I create, or the safe space that I can create for the people around me. From the stories that I've heard from people that have loved her, I know that she always made people feel loved and safe. So I hope that's part of her that shows up in the way that I show up for others. And then my grandmother, when my mom died, my grandmother did not hesitate to step in. She became that home for me. She wasn't necessarily where I lived, but she was the safe space. My dad was doing what he could, and my grandmother knew that maybe he needed a little bit of help. She wasn't trying to be my mom, but she helped give this loving structure this consistency of safeness and kind of this quiet sense of belonging that I so desperately needed. I have more than a few beautiful memories with my grandmother from the times where she made me feel like I didn't have to be a grown-up. And maybe this is a new thought that I'm thinking of right now, but there were times in which we could escape together and have fun and reminded me that I was still a kid. What's funny about that is when I look back on so many of my experiences in the world after my mom died, I felt like I grew up too quick and I had to be perfect and I had to show up in a way that everyone knew I was okay. But I distinctly remember so many times with my grandmother where she made me feel like a kid again and allowed me to live in that kid-like wonder. We would go on these vacations together, like to the beach, which wasn't too far away, but a couple nights at the beach. And it was just the two of us, like a kid's escape. And we had a great time doing that. And then growing up, I would go to lunch with her every weekend. I moved back to Massachusetts to be closer to her and take her out to eat every weekend. And we had just a great routine there. And then when she got sick, I tried to do what I could. So I took her to see Josh Groban front row, and she loved every moment of that, even though she was probably in so much pain then. And I remember how I faced the end with her and was able to have these conversations, or actually the final conversation that I refer to as the final conversation, where we said all the things that we needed to say, all the things that typically people reserve for the funeral. I said to her face. And it was so hard, but I have zero regrets for that, because when I left that apartment that evening, I knew I had nothing left that I needed to say. She knew it all. She knew how thankful I was for her stepping in and stepping up. So she was just such a wonderful mother figure in my life. But I didn't really realize it back then. And I'm just kind of realizing it now. But so much of the stability that I have now, so much of who I am really came from her believing in me. So I'm so thankful for her, and I celebrate her on Mother's Day. And then there's my dad. So this is not what we would say for Mother's Day, but my dad was grieving too, and definitely more than I knew at the time. And still, he showed up in the ways that he knew how every day. He was in his mid-30s. My parents were divorced. My mom was taking care of me full time. And all of a sudden, he had to become a single parent and help someone, an 8-year-old, that didn't know how to go through the world without his mother. And now he had to figure out, how am I going to help him? So my dad stepped up. He got extra jobs to make sure that we were okay. He, kept me in line. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, did I have to get those A+? But, it got me to where I am now. And he just wanted to see that I could be successful after my mom died, because I'm sure in his mind, it's like, oh, everything is broken. How do we move forward? But he just stepped up. And back then, I just thought that was normal. And I kind of took it for granted. And now I know it wasn't. It was really just immense love for me to make sure that I was okay. And he sacrificed so much. And it was this presence that I didn't really appreciate probably until I became an adult. He had no roadmap. He just kind of led with his heart, and he knew that together the two of us would kind of make it through. So on this Mother's Day, I certainly celebrate my father. Now, for you listening, if today is one of those rough days, if it brings tears, or you just don't have the words, or it's this like strange mixture of both, of celebrating the happy memories, but also being so terribly sad and missing the mother figure in your life, I want you to know that you're definitely not alone. I have those moments now too. And even though I think my mom is more of this idea of a mother, I know she was a person, but for me, I don't remember all of those mothering moments. I still long for what could have been. So whether you are celebrating someone today with them, or you're grieving someone, or you're missing what the Mother's Day of the past used to be, and what you used to celebrate every time, I see you. And maybe today, if it feels okay, you can say their name out loud. So for me, I say Happy Mother's Day to my mother, Joan. I say Happy Mother's Day to my grandmother, Eva. And I celebrate my father, Jack, on this Mother's Day because all three of these individuals really shaped me and gave me as much as they could in the time allotted together. And my dad is still showing up, and it's really just an honor to have this relationship that maybe wouldn't have existed had my mom not passed away. So thank you for spending a little bit of Mother's Day with me and listening to this and not really understanding what I was going to say. I have a little outline here just so that I could stay on track. But if this episode moved you in any kind of way and you want to reach out to those that you love, or maybe you know someone in your life that has lost someone that was a mother figure to them, reach out to them and just let them know that you were thinking of them. You don't need to solve anything. But I know personally, it is always a nice thing to hear from those that remember me on Mother's Day and remember that maybe today is not as easy as it has been in the past, or maybe it's okay and we're just celebrating that we had these mother figures in our lives. And if you've been along this life shift journey, I'd love it if you continue following. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you haven't left a review yet, it would help so much to kind of get these stories into other ears by doing a 5-star rating and writing a little bit review. Because I know the more people that hear this show and hear the stories will hopefully feel less alone in their own circumstances or their own story. Until next time, take care of yourself and celebrate those soft spaces in your heart.